if you look at the RPG genre, right? So just RPGs, the kind of games that I like to play. You go from games like Pillar of Eternity, you go from Pillars of Eternity 2, you have some Pathfinder Kingmaker in there, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and you can see how Divinity Original Sin 2 comes out, and it already has to push the envelope pretty far forward, right? So it really has to give players a lot more freedom and a lot more ways in which to interact with the world and for the world to also interact with the player. And it would not have worked as well. So, for example, Pillars of Eternity has a pretty good storyline for those of you that might be interested in that type of game. Pillars of Eternity, Pathfinder, Kingmaker, even, that is pretty decent. It's got a good storyline. But it didn't go nearly as big as Divinity Original Sin 2, purely because it was still, and still is, the bog standard RPG, CRPG approach. It does nothing different to what you would have found in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 more than 20 years ago. It does the exact same thing the same way. Then comes Baldur's Gate 3. And Baldur's Gate 3 completely revolutionizes the industry. Right? From the ground up, no RPG from here on forward will ever be able to perform well if it doesn't at least adhere to most of what Baldur's Gate 3 had laid down. And you can see the AAA developers had a meltdown over it. The same can be said for Cyberpunk 2077. In its glory state, once all of the patches were applied and the game got good, you suddenly have a game that is a trendsetter. That is the sort of, this is the standard, all other games will have to adhere to that standard. So gaming, in general, have upgraded year after year, month after month, release after release. They have to keep up with what players expect, what players want. MMOs haven't. And it sounds... actually, you are correct. Planescape Torment is another very, very good game. But even there, I would say it doesn't do... Baldur's Gate 3 definitely expands on that and does everything just better because there's so much... Remember, you learn and you keep adapting. I would say the one problem that MMOs have is that they have sort of stagnated. All MMOs keep doing the same stuff over and over again. And while every MMO on the market today will focus on slightly different things, they still all do all of the same things with very little adaptation. And that might be why you get some people that are complaining, why some people are not having as much fun in WoW, even though the War Within, in my opinion, is a really good expansion. But I also think, and this is going to almost certainly make a lot of you upset. So I apologize ahead of time if I cause you to be upset, but please bear with me. There are a lot of WoW players that play World of Warcraft as their only game. They play nothing else. This is their game. This is the only game that they play, and they have no interest in installing other games. Blizzard, for their part, have consistently tried to make the World of Warcraft a more accessible game. So a game where more people want to, can log in, play for a couple of hours, and then log out. And you don't need to grind yourself to death in order to get everything unlocked. Well, the problem is this fundamentally, you have what is called a mutually exclusive goal. If you achieve the one goal by making it easier for people to just get what they need and go play something else, you immediately piss off the people that are hardcore Andes that want to farm and grind and basically want something to do. This is why, even to this day, you have people calling for a return of Azerite power. Even to this day. Kibbleton, thanks for the follow, man. Really appreciate you. I'm going to read through chat in a second, by the way, so just keep leaving your messages. I will read everything that you guys write. This is why you still have people calling for a return to Azerite power. Because they want something to farm. They want a reason to be in the game, and the game needs to give them a reason to log in every day and to grind out the farm. when the game doesn't do that, because when the game did that, you pissed off all of the people that sort of just wanted to enjoy their time in the game and they didn't want to make the game a second world, a second life. It's always going to be in that sort of world, if you guys get my meaning. You're always going to end up with one group angry. So if you do cater to the hardcore Andes, you piss off all the casual players. And if you cater to the casual players, you piss off the hardcore players. And it's like, well, damned if you do, damned if you don't. What's the answer? In this scenario, chat, where we have a impossible choice in front of us, we either give the casual Andes what they want, and we risk losing the hardcore Andes entirely, because all it will take is a single hardcore game to come out to steal away the hardcore Andes, or we cater to the hardcore Andes, but then we risk losing the casual Andes. And there are already a number of casual games out there that are trying to get the casual Andes away from the game. So what's the answer? What do we do? Just become a universal collector and you will always have enough content in WoW? Damn, the problem is not everyone likes that, right? You're always going to make one group angry. The answer is to double down on your core audience and make the game amazing for them. Credivane, I think the problem in World of Warcraft is when we say core audience, that doesn't mean much in WoW. Because of WoW just being around for so long, I would not be surprised if there are like 3 or 4 major groups with sort of similar percentage of the player base, and then maybe a couple of smaller groups with fewer percentage points. But I don't know if there is an overwhelming group. I don't know if there is a group that this is the group and they're the most players are in this group. The only group that I can identify as this, but the reason I don't include that group is because I don't think anything Blizzard does can save this group. We have from Holly Longdale herself, who admits the largest group of players in World of Warcraft are players who log in right after a new expansion or a new patch drops. They play for about a month and then they log off and they only come back next patch. These would be your story Andes, like me and you guys. Or at least some of you that care about the story. I don't think you can change the way they play the game. I don't think anything Blizzard does will make them play longer. If Blizzard made the game more grindy, they wouldn't care because they're just playing the story and then they're leaving. If Blizzard made the game less grindy, they wouldn't care because they're just playing the story and they're leaving. So that group I don't factor that group into decision making for how you want to operate at the game level, because they don't want to play endgame anyways. They're off doing their own things. So what's the answer? Well, either we do what someone suggested that in chat, well, just pick your audience and cater to that audience, or we need to start diversifying into areas of game design where maybe we can design types of content for your more hardcore Andes. Because right now the game is already very much geared towards the more casual player base. It's very easy to get geared, very easy to get everything that you want. So you already have that player base. So what's the answer on top of this? Well, in my estimation, you take something like the Siren Isle. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do that with Siren Isle or even that they should do that with Siren Isle, but I'm using Siren Isle as an example. You take something like Siren Isle, and that island you turn into a hardcore, massive grind. I'm talking insane levels of grind. It's going to take you months to get fully geared if you play every single day on that isle. The gear is completely and utterly localized to that isle. So in other words, the gear works nowhere else. It's just for that isle. Maybe that isle offers alongside it 2 or 3 raid bosses that are actual raid bosses that people can go do. So an actual raid with like 4 bosses in it. Holy shit. Standard Hamster, thank you for the gifted subs, dude. Really appreciate that. Thank you. You're far too kind, sir. And then you have like a couple of dungeons, 1 or 2 dungeons that are also geared to the high level, grind yourself to death just endlessly. And I think that maybe solves that problem. Because you're hardcore Andy, the person that wants to play the game like it's a second job, they can go do that. Right? And they'll be able to play that for months on end and just grind and grind and grind as if there's nothing left. Whereas the other people, they don't have to play that. Or they can play it much slower because it's not something that's tied to the main core play loop. Right? The gear there doesn't affect anything. That's maybe another option if you want to go down that road. Give your raiders something to sweat over, give your PvPers something to grind, world players something to explore and work towards for weeks and months, and your story lovers something to theory craft over for ages. Crediline, in theory, everything you just said there is absolutely correct. The problem is implementing that as an actual game strategy can be very difficult.